This is On the Edge. I'm Dr. Jonas Moses. With me, Shawn McCarrey. Shawn is the Executive Vice President of Worldwide Sales and Marketing for Possis. And thank you for joining me today, Shawn. I surely appreciate it.
You're welcome, Jonas. Thanks for having me.
Shawn, I earlier asked you a little bit about your background, and I think that would be great to start with. Please give me a little idea how you ended up in the biomedical field in the first place.
Well, you know what? About 25 years ago now, a couple of years I spent out of college. I went to sales training with Xerox, and I had a couple of gentlemen that I trained with that later got into the medical device industry. And they told me it was the place to be, Jonas. And 25 years ago, I took their advice and have been here since.
Now, I understand you started out in the OR, working in a surgical company?
I did. It was a division of C.R. Bard called Davol Medical, and it was in the operating room division, yes, absolutely.
So all of this time later, you are now with Possis, and how long have you been with Possis?
It's about 9.5 years since I joined Possis now.
What made you decide to make a move to a company like this?
Well, I knew that it was a promising young company at the time, 9.5 years ago. At that point, they didn't have a coronary indication for the device, but I knew it was the real future of that product. And shortly after I joined the company, they got their FDA indication for coronary intervention with a mechanical thrombectomy device called the AngioJet.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the technology. We won't go into too much depth here today, but briefly describe the kinds of devices your company innovates.
Well, we have a platform technology, Jonas, and it's called the AngioJet system. And in a nutshell, what it does is it removes blood clots from the body. So whether that blood clot is in somebody's coronary artery, it might be in their leg, it could be in their arm, perhaps, but the bottom line is that we've got a console that we sell. It's got a family of catheters, depending on where the clot is located in the body, and it's a tiny little vacuum that sucks blood clots out of the body.
Now, when I'm a biomedical engineer, and when I think of catheterization, I think of things like balloon angioplasty and different scoping devices.
Certainly.
In the process of sucking these clots out of different locations in the arteries and veins, is there a mechanical process going on, or is it strictly a vacuum process?
No, there is a if I understand your question correctly, first of all, it's the Bernoulli principle. That's how our device works. As an engineer, you'd understand that. Oftentimes the AngioJet is used before they proceed with the intervention. So it is used typically in a procedure where they may angioplasty with a balloon, or they may deliver a stent as well. So first, oftentimes, if the clot is obscuring their view and they're not sure exactly what's happening in that part of the vessel, they may vacuum it out with the AngioJet and then proceed with the intervention, which could be balloon angioplasty or stenting.
Now, we've talked a lot about in past shows, and in fact, just recently interviewed a couple of cardiologists who were both, one was an interventionalist, but they were both invasive and non-invasive. I think primarily of cardiologists as your audience. Is anyone else using your technology?
Absolutely. Beyond the interventional cardiologist, interventional radiologists, and vascular surgeons. And in fact, there are some interventional nephrologists now as well that are popping up around the country that have started to use our technology.
Is your company involved in clinical research?
We are, of course, like most device companies are. We are involved in clinical research, both in the coronaries and the peripheral vessels as well.
And you mentioned to me that your company is undergoing some kind of growth. Can you address that at all?
I can briefly. Possis Medical is in the right now. We're currently being acquired by a company called MedRad, based in Pittsburgh.
Familiar with that?
They are purchasing Possis Medical, and we're probably days away from a final announcement that the acquisition is complete.
Wonderful. And I assume that their technology is in concert with yours, and this is a successful outcropping into new spaces for you.
That's a safe assumption, Jonas. In fact, they're well known. They're the market leader in power injection systems around the world. They have about a 70% market share. We are the market leader in mechanical thrombectomy. So they're market leaders with a diagnostic product. We're market leaders with a therapeutic product. It is a good combination. I think the sum is going to be much stronger than the parts themselves, yes.
Great. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we close this segment?
Just that the future is very bright. Even though we are market leaders, Possis, for example, is a market leader in mechanical thrombectomy. We've only accomplished about 15% market share of our realizable market. So I think our best days are ahead of us and not behind us.
Shawn McCarrey, thank you so much for joining us this hour. I certainly appreciate it. Dr.